The envelope was thick, stamped certified mail in red across the front. I signed for it at the curb, while Mrs. Day watered her roses across the street. By the time I unfolded the letter, 3 garage doors had paused halfway open. $12,000. That's what the HOA claimed I owed for an unauthorized structural modification. The violation, a 20-foot aluminum flagpole set clean in concrete, standing straight in my front yard. The letter threatened daily fines, liens, even legal action if I didn't remove it within 30 days. A flagpole. I read it twice, slow and careful, like I used to read repair manuals. My name was spelled correctly. The amount wasn't a typo dot across the street. Someone whispered. I didn't argue. I didn't storm toward the clubhouse. I folded the letter along its original crease and slid it back into the envelope. They thought they'd sent a warning. They had no idea who they'd just tested. I'm not the kind of man who panics over paper threats. Spent 22 years as an army mechanic, most of it keeping engines running in places where sand found its way into everything. After retiring, I opened a small engine repair shop out of my garage. Lawnmowers, generators, the occasional boat, motor. If it has moving parts, I fix it. Slow, careful, right the first time. I've lived in this house 30 years, paid it down the hard way, buried my wife 5 summers ago. The flagpole wasn't political. It was for my father, Vietnam, 1968. He never asked for much, but he believed in raising the flag properly. I measured twice before digging, called the county to confirm height limits, set the base in concrete before sunrise, sweat rolling down my back as the Texas heat climbed. I kept the lines tight, the angle perfect. What I didn't check was a 15-year-old HOA architectural clause buried in fine print. That's where they operate. Technicalities and tone. I operate on procedure. The next HOA meeting was held in the clubhouse, folding chairs lined up under fluorescent lights that hummed overhead. I took a seat in the back and waited my turn. When they called my name, the board president adjusted her glasses and spoke into the microphone like I was hard of hearing. Mr. Carter has chosen to disregard established community standards. Chosen. I stood, hands folded behind my back. I asked, evenly, why the Henderson's shed, the Ramirez basketball hoop, and 3 decorative light poles down Elm Street hadn't triggered fines. Her smile tightened. Those were approved. I asked if I could see the approvals. There. On file, she said, already looking past me. No documents, no dates, just authority. She informed me I had 30 days to remove the flagpole or fines would escalate. It wasn't about aluminum or concrete. It was about control. So instead of arguing, I requested copies of every architectural approval issued in the last 5 years. At the next meeting, I requested copies of all architectural approvals issued over the past 5 years. The president smiled tightly and said records would be reviewed. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Meanwhile, the fines ticked up daily. $200 here, $300 there, like a meter running in the background. So I sent a certified letter of my own, citing the state's HOA transparency statute. Polite, direct, documented. They responded quickly after that. Too quickly. What they delivered wasn't complete. Several homes with sheds, pergolas, even decorative light posts had approval stamps, but no accompanying applications, no signatures, no dates, just rubber stamped approved. I drove the neighborhood that evening, made notes, photographs. Quietly, board members had backyard structures that didn't appear anywhere in the file stack. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't knock on doors. I bought a 3-inch binder and began organizing everything chronologically. Then their attorney sent a letter threatening a lien if payment wasn't received. I filed that one too. Pressure builds paper by paper. The second letter came by regular mail, thinner but heavier in tone. If the balance remained unpaid, the association would explore all remedies available, including foreclosure proceedings. Foreclosure over a flagpole. I read that one at the kitchen table where my wife used to sort bills. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. For the first time, the stakes felt real, not just money, but the roof over my head. Word traveled fast. I noticed curtains shifting when I stepped outside. Mrs. Daly crossed over one evening, a voice low. She'd been fined $3,000 for a fence repair after a storm. She paid it because she couldn't afford a lawyer. They count on that, she said. Maybe they did. The board's letters grew sharper. Shorter sentences. More legal phrasing. I became comma dot instead of drafting another response. I drove to City Hall, took a number, waited my turn. When I reached the counter, I didn't complain. I asked about permitting requirements for residential structures. The clerk behind the counter adjusted her glasses and pulled up the municipal code. Anything over 15 feet, she explained, required a city permit. Light poles, detached structures, extended pergolas, even certain fence modifications. Approval wasn't optional. It was documented, inspected, archived. I asked how homeowners verified compliance. They pull a permit, she said simply, back in my truck. I cross-referenced addresses from my binder with the city's public database. One by one, the search returned the same result. No permit on file. Sheds, patio covers, elevated decks. 3 belonged to current board members. I sat there a long minute, engine off. Windows cracked to the Texas heat. I didn't file anything that day. I went back inside and requested printed copies of the code sections instead. Procedure first. Action later. The following week, I filed a formal public records request with the city's permitting office. It took 10 days to process. When the packet arrived, it was thick and definitive. 18 properties in our subdivision had exterior structures requiring permits. None had them on file. I verified something else while I waited. My flagpole complied fully with municipal height limits, setback requirements, and, more importantly, state statutes protecting the display of the American flag by homeowners, including restrictions on HOA interference. That was the keystone. They were leaning on internal bylaws. I was standing on state and city law. I scheduled a private meeting with the HOA president at the clubhouse, brought copies of everything in a neat folder. I didn't threaten, didn't raise my voice. I simply asked, once more, for documentation, proving consistent enforcement across the neighborhood. He didn't have it. The board refused to waive the fine. Their response came in a brief email citing architectural integrity and uniform standards, so I filled out a code enforcement request form with the city. I didn't name names. I didn't speculate. I simply requested a neighborhood compliance review based on documented permit discrepancies. I attached addresses, structure descriptions, and copies of the municipal code sections that applied. No exaggeration. No emotion. Just facts. The submission receipt landed in my inbox 2 days later. I told no one. The HOA continued sending balance updates as the total client passed 13,000. They had no idea city inspectors were already scheduling route assignments. Sometimes the strongest move is the quiet one no one sees coming. The city trucks rolled in on a quiet Tuesday morning. White doors. Official seals. Inspectors walked house to house with clipboards and measuring tapes. By noon, correction notices were taped to 14 doors, including 3 belonging to board officers. 2 weeks later, at the HOA meeting, the president cleared his throat and announced a temporary suspension of enforcement actions. Pending policy review, my $12,000 fine was withdrawn without discussion. No one applauded, but everyone understood. The flagpole stayed. Over the next few months, the HOA rewrote its enforcement procedures and formalized transparent approval records. The president resigned before summer. Power without accountability invites correction. Know your bylaws, know your city code, and never assume you're powerless. If this story resonated with you, if you believe homeowners shouldn't be bullied over technicalities, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you appreciate strategic pushback against overreach. There's a lot more coming. And I'd really like to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever dealt with an HOA that pushed too far? What did you do? Your experiences matter.